Every night in the months after she'd left him, he'd fall asleep in a different spot. On the sofa, in an armchair in the living room, on the mat on the balcony like some homeless bum. Every morning, he made a point of going out for breakfast. Even prisoners get a daily walk in the yard, don't they? At the cafe, they always gave him a table set for two and sat him across from an empty chair. Always. Even when the waiter specifically asked him if he was alone. Other people would be sitting there in twos or threes, laughing or tasting each other's food, or fighting over the check, while Myron sat by himself, eating his healthy start. Orange juice, muesli with honey, decaf double espresso with warm, low-fat milk on the side. Of course, it would have been nicer if someone were sitting down across from him and laughing with him, if there had been someone to argue with over the check and he'd have had to struggle to hand the money to the waitress saying, "Don't take it from him. Avery, put it back. This one's on me." But he didn't really have anyone to do that with, and breakfast alone was 100 times better than staying home. Myron spent a lot of time eyeing the other tables. He'd eavesdrop on conversations, read the sports supplement, or examine the ups and downs of the Israeli shares on Wall Street with an air of detached concern. Sometimes someone would come over and ask for a section of the paper he'd finished reading, and he would nod and try to smile. Once, when a sexy young mother with a baby in a stroller walked over to him, he even said to her, as he gave up the front page with the banner headline about a gang rape in the suburbs, "What a crazy world we're bringing our children into." He thought it sounded like the kind of statement that brings people closer together, pointing as it did to their common fate. But the sexy mom just glared at him. And took the healthy living supplement too, without asking. Then one Thursday, a fat, sweaty guy walked into the cafe and smiled at him. Myron was caught off guard. The last person who'd given him a smile was Mayan, just before she left him, 5 months earlier, and her smile had been unmistakably sarcastic. Whereas this one was soft, almost apologetic. The fat guy gestured something, apparently a signal that he'd like to sit down, and Myron nodded almost without thinking. The fat guy took a seat. "Reuben," he said. "Listen, I'm really sorry I'm late. I know we said 10, but I had a nightmare morning with the kid." It crossed Myron's mind that maybe he ought to tell the fat guy he wasn't Reuben, but he found himself checking his watch instead and saying, "What's 10 minutes? Forget it." Then neither of them spoke for a second, and Myron asked if the kid was okay. And the fat guy said she was. It was just that she'd started a new kindergarten, and every time he took her there, she had a hard time letting him go. But never mind. He stopped short. "You got enough on your plate without my problems. Let's get down to business." Myron took a deep breath and waited. "Look," the fat guy said, "500's too high. Give it to me for 400. You know what? 410 even, and I'm good for 600 pieces." 480, Myron said. "And that's only if you're good for 1,000. "You gotta understand," the fat guy said. "The market's in the crapper, what with the recession and all. Just last night on the news, they showed people eating out of garbage cans. If you keep pushing, I'll have to sell high. You're pricing me right out of the market." "Don't worry," Myron told him. "For every 3 people eating out of garbage cans, there's someone driving a Mercedes." This made the fat guy laugh out loud. "They told me you were tough," he muttered with a smile. "I'm just like you," Myron protested, "simply trying to keep body and soul together." The fat guy wiped his sweaty palm on his shirt, then held it out. 460, he said. 460, and I take 1,000. When he saw Myron wasn't reacting, he added, 460, 1,000 pieces, and I owe you a favor. And you know better than anyone, Reuben, that in our business, favors are worth more than money. This last sentence was all Myron needed to take the outstretched hand and shake it. For the first time in his life, someone owed him a favor. Someone who thought his name was Reuben, but still. And when they'd finished eating, as they argued over who would pick up the tab, a warm feeling spread through Myron's stomach. He beat the fat guy to it by 1/10 of a second and shoved the crumpled bill into the waitress's hand. From that day on, it became practically a standard procedure. Myron would take a seat, give his order, and keep a lookout for any new person who came into the cafe. And if that person started searching the tables with an expectant look, Myron would quickly wave and invite him or her to take a seat. "I don't want this to end up in court," a bald guy with thick eyebrows told him. "Me neither," Myron conceded. "It's always better to settle things amicably." "Just remember, I don't do night shifts," a Botox-lipped bleach blonde announced. "Just who do you expect? Everyone else will do night shifts except you?" Myron grumbled back. "Gabby asked me to tell you that he's sorry," said a guy with rotting teeth and an earring. "If he was really sorry," Myron countered, "he should have come and told me himself. No middlemen." "In your email you sounded taller," a skinny redhead complained. "In your email you sounded less picky," Myron snapped. And somehow, everything worked out in the end. He and Baldy settled out of court. Botox Lips agreed to ask her sister to babysit so she could do one night shift a week. Rotting Teeth promised Gabby would phone, and the redhead and Myron agreed they weren't quite right for each other. Sometimes they picked up the tab, sometimes he did. With the redhead, they split the bill. And it was all so fascinating that if a whole morning went by when nobody took a seat across from him at the table, Myron felt let down. Luckily, this didn't happen too often. Almost 2 months had gone by since the sweaty fat guy when a pockmarked man walked in. Despite the pocked face and the fact that he looked at least 10 years older than Myron, he was good-looking, loads of charisma. The first thing he said as he sat down was, "I was sure you wouldn't show." "But we agreed to meet," Myron answered. "Yes," said the pockmarked guy with a sad smile. "Except that after the way I yelled at you on the phone, I was afraid you'd chicken out." "So, here I am," Myron said, almost teasingly. "I'm sorry I yelled at you on the phone," the guy apologized. "Really. I just lost it. But I meant every word I said. You got that? I'm asking you to stop seeing her." "But I love her," Myron said in a choked voice. "Sometimes you can love something and you still have to give it up," the pockmarked guy said. "Listen to someone a little older than you. Sometimes you have to give it up." "Sorry," Myron said, "but I can't." "Yes, you can," the guy shot back. "You can, and you will. There's no other way. Maybe we both love her, but I happen to be her husband, and I am not about to let you break up my family. Got that?" Myron shook his head. "You have no idea what my life has been like this past year," he told the husband. "Hell. Not even hell. Just one great big stale chunk of nothing. And when you've been living with nothing for so long and suddenly something turns up, you can't just tell it to go away. You understand me, don't you? I know you understand me." The husband bit his lower lip. "If you see her one more time," he said, "I'll kill you. I'm not kidding, and you know it." "So kill me," Myron shrugged. "That doesn't scare me. We're all going to die in the end." The husband bent down across the table and socked Myron in the jaw. It was the first time in his life that anyone had hit him so hard, and Myron felt a hot wave of pain surge up somewhere in the middle of his face and spread in every direction. Seconds later, he found himself on the floor with the husband standing over him.
I'll take her away from here,
the husband kept shouting as he went on kicking Myron in the stomach and ribs.
I'll take her far away to another country, and you won't know where she is. You'll never see her again. You got that, you rotten piece of shit?
2 waiters jumped the husband and managed somehow to yank him away from Myron. Somebody yelled to the barman to call the police. With his cheek still glued to the coolness of the floor, Myron watched the husband run out of the cafe. One of the waiters bent over and asked him if he was okay, and Myron made an attempt to answer. "Do you want me to call an ambulance?" the waiter asked. Myron whispered that he didn't. "Are you sure?" the waiter insisted. "You're bleeding." Myron nodded slowly and shut his eyes. He tried as hard as he could to imagine himself with that woman, the one he'd never see again. He tried, and for a moment he almost succeeded. His whole body ached. He felt alive.
Actor John Conley reading a story by Etgar Keret from his new collection of stories, Suddenly a Knock on the Door.